Ottawa's ballooning payroll is an elephant in the room that every struggling Canadian can no longer afford to ignore, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer has released numbers that show an alarming trend. The federal government spending is up more than 6% in just 1 year. Let's dig in.
We are reducing the size of the federal public service by 10%. We are cutting management consultants by 20%.
According to the newly released Parliamentary Budget Officer's personnel expenditure analysis, total federal personnel spending hit $76.3 billion in 2024 and 2025. That's up from $72 billion the year before, a 6% increase in just 1 year. Now, the government will probably try to bury this by clinging to the fact that growth has slowed compared to the double-digit jump the year prior, but they won't emphasize that even after stripping out so-called one-time payments, departmental personnel spending still climbed to $64.2 billion, up a staggering 6.7%. That's more than double the pre-pandemic average growth rate of just over 3%. And remember, this is 5 years after the height of COVID. Personnel spending includes salaries, pensions, overtime, bonuses, and a category that deserves far more scrutiny called other payments. If you look at the trend line from 2006 onward, spending rises gradually until 2020 and 2021. That's when these one-time payments shoot upward during peak COVID years. Never let a good crisis go to waste, so they say. And with emergency measures in place, these unprecedented times obviously required extraordinary decisions and spending. But the issue is that those spending levels didn't and haven't snapped back. Instead, they've become the new baseline. Now, let's talk about headcount, because the federal public service has grown to 448,000 full-time employees, an increase of 7,000 in just 1 year. That's the largest federal workforce in modern history. It was noted in 2024 that from 2010 to 2024, Canada's population grew by 21.1%, while the number of federal public servants rose by 30%, meaning that the bureaucracy has expanded significantly faster than the population it serves. Even more telling, though, is that compensation per employee jumped 5.1% this year alone, to over $143,000 per full-time equivalent. That's the second consecutive year of historically high per employee growth. Salaries rose nearly 5%, but other payments per employee surged 16%. Now officials say part of that is an accounting shift involving the RCMP. Costs that were previously categorized as transfer payments are now listed as personnel expenses. Fine, but even excluding that technical change, other payments still rose more than 5%. And here's what falls under that umbrella: employer contributions to health plans, disability insurance, employment insurance, and a collection of miscellaneous expenditures that rarely receive public debate. Then there are those one-time payments. We saw large spikes during 2020 and 2021 tied to things like pension plan adjustments, retroactive collective agreement payouts, severances, packages, etc. And those one-time costs have appeared again and again in different forms, layered into an already expanding compensation structure. Meanwhile, Ottawa insists growth is slowing, and Prime Minister Mark Carney said he'd cut public service.
Federal spending overall has grown more than 8% year after year. That is twice the rate of growth of our economy. So in this budget, we slash direct program spending to just over zero. And we balance the operating budget in 3 years. This will save Canadian taxpayers a total of $60 billion over 5 years by restructuring operations, consolidating internal services, and right-sizing programs. We are reducing the size of the federal public service by 10%. We are cutting management consultants by 20%. And in parallel, what's freed up from that is capital investments as a share of total spending will more than double from its historic average of 4% to almost 9%. That means over $450 billion in capital investment to help crowd in the private investment that Canada needs.
But slowing growth on top of a dramatically expanded base still equals bigger government. And while the number of federal employees per 100,000 Canadians dipped slightly this past year, it's largely due to record population growth, not workforce restraint. Thanks, unmitigated immigration. Let's also remember that Canadians fund all of this. While households are told to tighten their budgets and face higher interest rates, higher taxes, and higher grocery bills, the federal payroll continues to climb well above historical norms, outpacing the population itself. This isn't about whether public servants deserve fair compensation, it's whether this bloated bureaucracy is sustainable. When pandemic-era spending spikes become permanent structural increases, taxpayers deserve transparency and accountability. Because it's become abundantly clear that once government spending ratchets upward, it rarely comes back down. And I don't think this time is any different. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. MPs will get an automatic pay hike this coming April 1st, and no, it's not an April Fool's Day joke. If you think an automatic pay hike is wrong and really unconscionable given the political failures, lack of responsible fiscal leadership, and bloating of an increasingly inept bureaucracy, please head to stopthepayhike.com and put your name to our petition. That's stopthepayhike.com.